Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy, Coach Landon, back with another episode of Beyond Tomorrow Recruiting. Today, I'm going to talk to Kolton Rapp. He is a coach at Treasure Valley Community College. Very good guy, good friend of mine, one of the college coaches I talk to on a very regular basis. So, he's got some great information for you guys. We're going to run this intro and jump into some questions. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. It's your boy, Coach Landon. Today, we are here with Kolton Rapp, one of the coaches up at Treasure Valley Community College. We're going to let Coach kind of give a quick intro, and then we'll jump into some questions.
Hey guys, like Landon said, I'm Coach Rapp. I'm the assistant at Treasure Valley right now. I spent some time at the University of Wyoming. I went to Impact Academy in Las Vegas, and then I ended up here. So it's been a good path so far.
There you go. So Treasure Valley, part of the NWAC, Northwest Athletic Conference.
Yep, athletic conference.
Athletic Conference. Kind of, I've explained what the NWAC is, how you guys have so many schools in two states that you have your own your own league, but kind of explain a little bit to the people watching what the NWAC is in comparison to the NJCAA.
Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of similar to the California system. It's a junior college organization that's independent. Like you said, it's Oregon, Washington, and Idaho. Yep, so three kind of Pacific Northwest states. A lot of these schools aren't able to offer fulls like the NJCAA is. A lot of schools can only cover tuition or different kind of things like that. So it's a little different in that respect.
So that's a huge difference. And I think we see those kind of differences when we look at Division III versus Division II versus Division I. We look at NAIs kind of in comparison to all these other programs. Everybody's kind of got what they can and can't do. And I think that's becoming a little bit more prevalent, and people are starting to understand that as I've been rolling out some of these videos and we've been able to talk to different coaches in different conferences and different divisions and different levels. From your perspective, I know that Treasure Valley comes down to the Salt Lake Jamboree every year. They're either one of very few NWAC schools that get to play against the NJCAA Region 18 teams, or some years you're the only one from the NWAC that comes down. Kind of give the people watching a little bit of input on the competition level. I think people have a misconception because the NWAC schools are not part of the NJCAA system, that there's a drastic level in competition, or if I go NWAC, I'm not going to get the same looks and the same exposure that I would at Western Wyoming or Salt Lake Community or Dixie or Snow or one of these, not Dixie's 4-year, but at one of these other community colleges or national junior colleges. So kind of speak to that as far as the competitiveness.
Yeah, I mean the competitiveness is definitely there. We're able to pull kids kind of just the same, with Kyle at Salt Lake, right? Obviously, let's say that he gets 10 fulls. We get the same amount of fulls, we just can't cover housing, right? So we can still pull decent talent. To your point, going down there, we played Salt Lake this year. We'll play Snow. We played CSI last year, and the competition is it's pretty close, right? So the level, the caliber of player is comparable for sure. Yeah, you'd ask another kind of smaller question in that, just competition, and then what was the other question?
And then like from a recruiting standpoint, from an exposure standpoint,
Yeah, thank you.
being able to move kids from the 2-year school level to that 4-year level, kind of talk about that a little bit from your perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so the NWAC is all Pacific Northwest, which I'm sure you're familiar, is a pretty kind of tight-knit group, right? And so you do see a lot of these kids from the NWAC going to Division II schools, NAIA schools, a lot of Pacific Northwest and the West Coast. We had a handful of guys go Division I, right? So Kobe Campbell from NIC this year's got an offer from Michigan. I think Maryland is in the talks. Like, he's got Power 5 offers from the NWAC, right? You've got guys like Julius Mims, the kid from Walla Walla, the big from Walla Walla, I'm spacing his name, but they both went to Idaho, right? Which are Big Sky, mid-major schools. Like, there's guys, the top percent of the NWAC is going Division I, right? And so it's not unfeasible. You do see a lot of guys that'll go D2, NAI, But I mean, you see that with Salt Lake too at the NJCAA level, right? You've got a certain amount of guys that go D1, and you've got D2 guys and NAI guys. So it's the level is there with the NWAC, right? And some of that is situation and coach and relationships, right? Which we can talk about later. A lot is based on relationships, right? And so that's how you get to the next level from a 2-year to a 4-year, right? Is you join a coaching staff in a community that has those connections, that has placed guys that know coaches at 4 years that are also in good situations, that are looking for guys every year, right?
Yeah.
That trust your head coach, and it even goes down to your level. Guys like me trust guys like you, right? So I'm going to take your guy and push him onto a 4-year, and so it's all about fit, right? Finding the people in your circle that represent you, and then who are they connected with, right? Because that's where you're going to go,
Definitely. I want to kind of shift a little bit because you're a great person to address something that kind of keeps coming up between players, parents. A lot of student athletes have reached out. And I say this because you being in close proximity geographically, you guys do recruit players from Utah.
Absolutely.
So I've had a player ask, how significant is the high school classification size? And so I had a kid that was part of a state championship team who was recruited by an NWAC school. And then I had a kid that was from a 2A high school team. He's a good player, but he was at a 2A level, at a state champion, at a higher classification level, a 5A level, and they were both being recruited by NWAC schools. So kind of speak to that as far as your opinion, high school classification versus just being skilled, being a good fit for the program. Kind of how do you view that when you're looking at kids, specifically high school kids, not transfers?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the level, it holds some weight. I don't think it's a lot. You know what I mean? I think to your point, right, there's 2A kids like Brock Felder, right, is a good example that blows up, right? He's a really good player. He's played in different systems. He's a 2A kid, right? But he's incredibly skilled. You find the right network, and now he's going to do great things, right? And so I don't really think the classification matters, especially with the evolution and kind of the increase of the AAU, and you've got guys training, and there's so many different factors now that, I mean, half the time I don't even think about, I'm making my list. I don't go down the 5A, the 4A, and then I stop at 3, right? And I'm like, oh, 3A, 2A. I'm not like, those kids get out on the list, right? Because there's enough exposure, there's enough, these camps and clinics and AU teams and these things, that those barriers are kind of broken now, obviously, right? And so I think it holds a certain amount of weight. Like we'll recruit kids in the summer and kind of get a lead on through different programs, and then through the school year we'll go watch, right? And obviously the basketball is a little bit different, but it never holds you back from building relationship with a kid, and a player that can play. It doesn't matter if he's at a 2A, a 3A, a 5A, 6A. It's pretty relevant, and it's the same in Washington, right? There was a kid up in Washington, 2A Pullman, Jaden Brown. He's now at Idaho State, right? Like 2A classification, super small in Washington, and he's a Division I kid, you know what I mean? And so I don't think that's ever going to hold somebody back. There might be some staffs, coaches that think differently, but I think holistically in this age of basketball, with all of these different kind of paradigms going on, that it's probably the least of my worries when I'm recruiting a kid.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's something that I can tell a parent, I could tell a student athlete, but to hear it from a college coach, I think it's definitely a lot more impactful. So I'm glad you touched on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll talk a little bit about intangibles. So in today's society, everybody's got a trainer, everybody's at an exposure camp, everybody's on a circuit team or a shoe team or playing AAU in the summer, and they're traveling across the country doing live events. When you're watching film, player X, you get a video, you get a message from a parent. Even myself as a high school coach, I say, hey, Kolton, check this kid out. I send you a full game video, start to finish, opening tip to end buzzer. And you're watching one certain player that I want you to take a look at. Or better yet, you come down, you go to Washington, Seattle, Wenatchee, whatever, you're watching a kid live. what are three things that you look for that are not skill based? We're talking intangibles, attitude, personality, interactions with teammates, interactions with coaches, whatever. What are three things that you look for that don't show up on that stat sheet that would really make a player stand out in your opinion?
Yeah. I think let me preface all of this by just saying that, for example, right, I come down to your gym and I'm watching an open run, right, whatever setting that might be. If there's a kid or a couple kids I'm keying in on, coaches are watching everything that you do, right? You walk in the door and you put your shoes on. I'm gonna notice how you tie your shoes. I'm gonna notice your teammates walking by. Do you acknowledge them? Like, how do you hold yourself from the minute you walk in that door to the minute you leave, right? And so every little action that you do matters, right? With that being said, I think it was the Spurs, Coach Pop, that talks about this a lot. It's all about touches, right? And if you're in a setting where I can tell that you're comfortable, I like to look at how you interact with your teammates, right? And some staffs will stat it actually. So Wyoming stats it during practice, right? How many touches do you get? That's a high five, that's a pat on the butt, that's a knuckles, right? Are you invested in your team? And to me, that shows that you're unselfish, right? You're about something a little more than yourself and about building the whole, right? If I can bring these four guys with me, we're going to be a little more successful, right? So I really look at touches and just the interaction that you have with other guys on the bench, your coaches, the gal getting you water, like everybody that you interact with. I want to know what presence you have and how you're going to treat and interact with each one of those people. I think a big thing for me is making the right play, right? To your point, it doesn't always show up on the stat sheet, but do you make the right play? And that can hold a couple different things, right? When you get in the paint, do you play off two, right? You jump stop, you shot fake, you make the right play, right? You're not out of control, things like that. Do we play off two? If we talked about this a little earlier, right? You hit the kick out. Do you make the extra pass, right? Somebody gets in the paint, you get by your guy, it's a 4-on-5, they kick it out, you got to close out. Do you make the extra pass, right? Do you make the right play? You're not going to get the shot. Guys closing out to you. Do you make the right play, right? I look for guys sometimes that'll do that more often than guys that are just, quite frankly, making shots, right? Like, does this guy, is he disciplined? Is he sound? Is he always going to make the right play, whether it benefits him directly or not? Like, is he a team guy? Is he unselfish? You know what I mean? And I think the last thing is, I'm trying to think, just work ethic and your approach, right? It's something that can't really be statted or quantified, right? But that's a big thing I ask coaches, right? Like if I'm asking you about a kid, what's his approach like, right? And you're gonna have a whole list, a whole slew of things about this kid, right? But the approach that you take day to day is noticeable, right? And if I ask Coach Landon, what's his approach like, I expect he's the first guy there. He's there with his shoes on before I even am there to turn the lights on, right? He's gotten 500 shots up. He's got 500 makes, right? Like, what is their approach to the day? Or is this a kid that, oh, I open the gym at 9, they show up at 9:15, they're on the phone with their girlfriend with their slides on, right? Like, what is your approach? Because when you get to college, those are non-negotiables.
Yeah.
Right. You get to college and practice is at 9 and you're in the gym at 8:30 and you're already making 100 shots before we start. Right. You're doing your plyos, you're doing different things, you're getting touches, you're doing all these things. But if you're the guy that shows up on time, like it's a difficult, right? Like you got to be really good to get away with some of those things. And some programs, coaches don't take it. Right. So what's your approach? I would say is my last thing, right? If you ask a coach about their approach, what is that coach going to say? Right. Because that's going to go a long way with me. So.
Yeah. Did you see the interview from last summer when Bradley Beal was yelling at his 17s after they blew the lead in the second half?
Yeah.
Like, when you guys get to college, nobody scores 20. And he made a really good point. I went and did some research after I saw that the first time, and I looked at the entire NBA lottery, and there was one person who averaged 20 points, and he was from a mid-major, and it was kind of like, if he wasn't scoring, the team struggled. But everybody else was averaging 12, 13, 14 points and being successful at that level. And it wasn't about how many points you can score, it was how do you impact the game. So yeah. I like that. And then I did see an interview with Lillard when he said, if I'm on time, then I'm late.
Yeah.
If I walk in the gym when practice starts, then I'm late. I need to be there 30, 40 minutes early. I'm drenched in sweat. Like, I'm taking that shirt off and putting my practice jersey on as the
and
team.
like, all right, let's start.
and now I'm ready to practice. And so I like that that approach and that mentality. That's good. I think a lot of kids just think, be the hardest working guy in practice. Don't lose a sprint in practice. Make deflections and make shots and score a lot of points and play good defense in practice. And they don't think about what happens before practice, what happens after practice. Sometimes you get there early and you're the first guy there, and sometimes you're the last guy out the gym, and you still might come off the bench, or you still might be a guy who gets 4 touches or 4 shots in the game because the system and the team is geared towards 2 pretty good offensive players and a big guy, and that's where the offense comes from. So
Sure.
I'm glad that you said that for sure. Building relationships, super important. I think that I'm glad you had mentioned that, because I think a lot of kids are chasing the wrong things when they want to play at the next level, and they're not checking to see, if I buy into this system and this coach believes in me, can he help me progress my career, versus, oh, this is the best school in the state, oh, my friends play over here, so I want to play with them. And they lose sight of that. And that's what I try to do. I try to be a player's advocate. I try to be a player's coach. I know a ton of talented guys. Obviously, we've talked tons of times, and I've been able to send guys information over to you and let you kind of talk to them and see if they're interested in coming up. But I definitely think that's a huge part of finding that right fit, right? People always talk about the right fit, but sometimes that right fit isn't the coach that's going to let you shoot the ball 15 times a game.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a coach that's going to have your back and advocate for you and tell guys, hey, he only averaged 6 points a game, but it was the things that didn't show up in the stat sheet why I love this kid, why you should look at him, because everybody isn't going to score 15 points a game at the next level. So I really appreciate you touching on that, because I think those are all super valid points that student athletes need to hear when they want to progress their career. So
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
so now we have this segment, and we just call it the fourth quarter. It's kind of just an open mic session for you to kind of tell the student athletes watching, the parents of the athletes watching, just from a coach's perspective, what you want them to know, what you want them to hear, and just kind of plant some of those seeds as some of these guys are getting ready. Some of these class of 24s and 25s are super talented. Even the 26 group, really, really, really talented from some of the videos I've seen online. So I'll just kind of open it up to you and let you kind of say whatever you want to say, and leave them with a few little jewels of knowledge.
I like it. Yeah. I mean, I'll cover some of this. I think fit is really important, right? So I'm going to kind of rehash it a little bit, right? At each level that you're at, fit is super important. And it's obviously it's a paradigm of different things, but guys that you've taken under your wing, right? You're now placing them somewhere else. And then guys that we have the expectation of placing, at a 4-year, right? And so when you're there, worry less about the glamour and the shoes and the jerseys and the level, and worry more about, like, is this guy going to take care of me when my tire's flat tomorrow, when my scholarship check doesn't hit, when my FAFSA is late and I got to make rent? Like, is this guy going to take care of me then? Is he going to take care of me in 2 years when I need to get to a 4-year? Like, those are the conversations of just the hardy, like, does this dude have my back? Or is he also just kind of using me for whatever, right? Like, you got to make sure that your circle is tight and that you trust the people that you're around, right? And they're gonna take you where you want to go, wherever that might be, that you can line out and have a transparent conversation. Coach, this is where I want to be in a year, 2 years, 3 years. And they're going to be transparent back and say, yes, I can get you there. This is what it looks like, right? And so I think people in your corner that you can be honest with and that can push you, but that will have your back at the end of the day, right? I think that's big. We chatted about this a little bit, right? And it's kind of with these, we want instant gratification. We want to look cool. Simple is really, really good, right? In life and in basketball, simple is good, right? Can you play off 2 feet? Can you jump stop? Can you ball fake? Can you make the extra pass? Can you make the right play, right? Can you be disciplined? Can you make the simple play? That's going to get you further in the game of basketball and the game of life than, the cameras and all the flashy stuff, right? Like, it's cool and we all have it, right? We all want that spotlight. But if you play simple and you play the right way and you're disciplined, in the long term, you'll get where you want to go. And I think it just comes down to game reps, right? We've talked a lot about this, like, we can make the right play, we can do these things, but you got to be able to get to your spot and you got to be able to make a shot, right? And so that looks like having guys that you work out with, you've got it every day and you're focused on makes, right? It's not, hey, let's go get it 500 shots. It's, hey, I need 250 mid-range makes, I need 253 makes, and I need 250 free throws, all makes, right? If it's an off day, shoot, it might be a couple hours, like, but you got to have people in your corner that are going to be there. They're going to rebound. They're going to encourage you and stick it out for a couple hours, right? Like game shots focused on makes, right? Like, I don't remember what the exact quote is, but don't do it until you can't get it, or yeah, don't do it till you get it right. Do it until you can't get it wrong, right? Like we've got guys that, come in and they're like, oh yeah, coach, I've been shooting this summer, made, shot 500 a day. I'm like, we're going to make 1,000 a day. Right. And it's going to be in a row. Like we do drills where it's all right, you got to make 10 in a row. You miss, you start over. Right. So your 5 spot, make 10 goes to 5 spot, make 10 in a row. Right. I mean, it's just, you have to continue to refine and refine and refine and find things that challenge you, right? Find drills that challenge you, find people that challenge you, and continue to push the envelope, continue to get better, and make sure they're game reps, right? Don't make anything easy on yourself in training. Always overtrain if possible, right? If that's a weighted ball, if that's 2-ball dribbling, you know what I mean? As long as it's reasonable, try to always continue to push yourself every day. And to the point about fit, like have people that will be honest with you and tell you when you've had an off day, tell you when, you're not making the mark. Those are the people that you need in your corner, right? That will support you, but also push you and be honest with you and say, hey, we got to work a little bit harder. We got, like, if we want to get here, we got to go, so I think those would be my little bits.
Yeah, I love it. Curry he had a post where he said 500 makes. He said he doesn't count the shots that don't go in because that's not what he's practicing for. And and when I train players, it's high intensity. Like, I mean, kids are drenched, kids are, we're taking water breaks every 4 or 5 minutes because we train at a level higher than they play. So when they come down and they're playing at this and this is game speed, they can go game speed all game. And so even if they get subbed out due to a rotation, when 3 minutes out the game, they're ready to go back in. And coach is like, all right, go back in and execute this. They got the energy to do it.
Yeah.
So my guys always train higher than game speed. And historically, it's worked out. I've had a lot of guys that have played for me and worked out with me, and they get to their high school tryouts and they're like, coach, high school tryouts was cake. Like, you make me make 10 in a row and I'll get to 9 and then start over. He's like, sometimes we spend an hour of working out because I can't hit 10 threes in a row, or I'll get the baseline, the wing, and then I'll struggle at the top and I'll sit there for 20 minutes. And I'm like, yeah, but when it's time to hit those in a game and you're knocking them down left and right and you're tired and you're knocking them down and you're coming off of picks, knocking them down, and you're in transition, knocking them down, and that basket looks like it's the size of the key, then your coach is going to love you for it. Like, you got to fall in love with the grind. You've got to fall in love with the process of putting in the work to get the results that you're after. Nobody gets results without that work. And the people who fall in love with that process and just crave it and want to do it before practice, stick after practice, go eat, go stretch, and then on your off day, you're going to go get shots up anyway. Those are the guys that create that separation. And Russell Wilson said the separation is in the preparation. The reason that guys excel is because of what they do when nobody's around, not what they do when they're with their team and when their coach gives them, okay, everybody on the team is going to do the same 3 or 4 things. It's that guy who goes and puts that extra work in when nobody's around so he can perform that way when everybody's around. So
yeah, I love that.
I'm glad you touched on that. So, man, I want to say thank you. I really appreciate you taking time out. I know season's going to get going soon. I know last minute recruiting is still happening, and we're trying to get as many 6'6" athletic lefties up there as possible. So, man, I appreciate it. I enjoy talking to you every time we text, every time we talk. I love how receptive you are when, I got a kid that's under the radar, when you need a roster spot filled and you're like, hey, any suggestions on this or that? So I'm really glad we were able to connect at that event last summer.
Yeah.
The mountain something exposure camp, mountain hoops exposure camp. I'm
Yep.
glad we were able to connect there, and I definitely look forward to staying in touch with you and just sending you some names and having you check out some guys and sending more guys up to the camp that you guys did. And
Yeah, absolutely.
I had a few Utah kids up there, and they're like, that was such a good camp. It was so competitive. And I had a
We had
bunch of
some good dudes.
underclassmen. Like one of my underclassmen was up there, and he's like, everybody was so athletic and so big. And I was like, yeah, you'll be the athletic big guy one day, but right now you're coming out of your, freshman year, getting ready for sophomore year. So
Yeah.
we'll definitely stay in touch, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate your time, coach, as always.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yep. All right, brother. We'll talk soon.